Strap yourselves in, guys, because this one is gonna be juicy. Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about The Kissing Booth 3. The Kissing Booth 3 is an American romantic comedy, and it's the third and final movie in the Kissing Booth trilogy based on the novels of the same name. The movie takes place during the summer holidays following Elle and her friends' graduation from high school, and her friends are talking a big game about all of the wonderful things that they're going to be doing in their future. But as for Elle, she's undecided and she can't make a decision as to what school she's going to end up going to for college. On one hand, she wants to go to UC Berkeley because that's where she and her best friend Lee have wanted to go to since they were kids. But on the other hand, she also wants to go to Harvard because that's where her boyfriend Noah happens to be going to. She's been accepted into both universities, so she's stuck in a bind as to what university she'll end up picking. Before committing to a decision, however, Elle goes to this beach house that Lee and Noah's family own, and the crew all get together at this beach house to have a ton of parties, do a variety of different activities, and basically just have a big send-off before everyone goes their separate ways into college. And as you can imagine, at a certain point in the story, Elle delays her decision making to the point that it inevitably blows up in her face and creates drama for everyone involved. And it's at this point in the video that I really have to stress that this is going to be a negative review of the movie. If you went into this video thinking that it was going to be a positive review of The Kissing Booth 3, then you may want to look elsewhere, because this video, it ain't it. I remember having watched The Kissing Booth 1 way back when it first came out in 2018 out of pure curiosity, and it confused me as much back then as it does now as to why it was so popular in the first place, let alone being popular enough that it got 2 sequels, each one being worse than the last. I rewatched Kissing Booth 1 and saw Kissing Booth 2 for the first time before having watched Kissing Booth 3, and having seen all 3 of these movies back to back to back, it astounds me that the filmmakers were able to create a trilogy of movies where the characters essentially don't learn anything. Elle is seriously one of the most immature and unlikable protagonists I've seen in a movie series, TV series, any series you can think of, bar none. The fact that she continues to go behind people's backs and lies in front of people's faces when she should have learned her lesson all the way back to the beginning with The Kissing Booth 1 is utterly astounding. She continues to make decisions, or not make decisions as the case may be, based on how she thinks other characters will react to them. It was bad enough in Kissing Booth 1 when she tried to keep her relationship with Noah hidden away from Lee so that she didn't hurt Lee's feelings, and that of course inevitably blew up in her face. Then in Kissing Booth 2, it got even worse when there was a new love interest thrown into the mix in the form of Marco, as terrible and horrible of a character he was, and how Elle was trying to have the best of both worlds by hanging out with Marco and Noah at the same time, and that too of course ended up blowing up in her face. Which leads to the big dilemma of The Kissing Booth 3 and how Elle tries to delay her decision making between choosing Harvard and Berkeley for as long as possible. I was actually surprised at how early they burst the bubble in that regard. I thought they would have stretched out that conflict a little bit longer. I mean, they sort of do towards the end with the Berkeley bit, but by that point in the movie it's too little too late. Pretty much everything that happens to Elle in this movie is her fault. I could sort of forgive her imperfections as a character if she worked past them after The Kissing Booth 1, but the fact that she's continuing to make poor decisions over and over again 2 movies later, I'm sorry, but there is no saving this character. Lee is another character that continues to act like a total child. He just seems to throw a bad attitude whenever the situation calls for it, be it over Elle's eventual choice of college or over this stupid bucket list that he wants to do with Elle, all these cool things that they're going to do before they end up going to college and go their separate ways. I have no idea why he is so obsessed with the list that he and Elle made as children, but he really needs to grow up. He also continues to ignore his girlfriend Rachel throughout most of this movie, just like he did in Kissing Booth 2 before it, and I have no idea why. I thought he would have learned his lesson considering how much of an issue it was for Rachel between how much time he was spending with Elle versus how little time he was spending with her, but apparently that's not the case. He just continues to make the same poor decisions and be the same annoying character over and over again with each successive movie. Speaking of Rachel, we don't even really see her all that much in this movie. We don't see her doing the bucket list activities that Elle and Lee are constantly doing. We just don't really see her all that much in the movie at all, so it really makes me wonder why she was even in this movie in the first place. The only thing we really know about her character at this point in the series is that she's a woman and her name is Rachel, and that's pretty much it. Out of the 3 main characters, Noah is probably the one that I hated the least, or the one that had the most visible change throughout the series, depending on how you look at it. One thing that still stands, though, that annoys me to this day, is that Noah has put up with Elle's crap in the series for far too long. Noah still holds a grudge against Elle's secondary love interest Marco from The Kissing Booth 2, who reappears again in this movie as well, and he makes it a point to tell Elle at least 2 or 3 times that he is uncomfortable having Elle hang around with Marco and doesn't want her to be around him. And what does Elle do multiple times throughout the movie? Spends time with Marco, of course, and of course this also makes Noah very angry towards her, understandably so. Now, to be fair, Noah isn't completely sympathetic either. He's still a bit of a hothead when it comes to solving conflicts, albeit not as much as he was in The Kissing Booth 1, but there are a few situations that come up in this movie's story where he almost gets physical with people, and considering what he's been through over the past couple movies, it's really annoying to see him still be so confrontative. The movie's story, if you can call it that, is just a bunch of random scenes mishmashed together in a vain attempt to be coherent, combined with pre-existing story tropes that date all the way back to the first movie that have aged like milk. Seriously, the randomness of this movie goes way over the top. There were a few montages here and there in the first 2 movies, but this one kicks it way into overdrive. It feels like half the damn movie is all a montage. Characters are just constantly doing one thing after the other, and it was really hard to keep track of what was happening in the story as a result. And when there are coherent moments that are happening on screen, it just comes off as boring because they're mostly just rehashes of already pre-existing scenes in the past 2 movies. Like when Molly Ringwald's character, who is Lee and Noah's mother throughout the series, is giving advice to Elle about random things like she has in the past 2 movies. Advice that, I might add, could easily have been gotten by Elle's own father if she actually took the time to approach him. The movie brings back Marco from The Kissing Booth 2 again in an attempt to explore the romantic angle between him and Elle once more, but it's so half-assed, it just never goes anywhere. If anything, it actually comes off as super creepy because he reveals that the reason why he continued to stay in LA is because Elle is there. It's like, dude, you know that she is in a committed relationship, and yet you're admitting that you're still gonna pursue her no matter what? Like, what are you doing, man? Seriously, that last scene between Elle and Marco before they part ways was super uncomfortable. I have no earthly idea what the filmmakers were thinking when they filmed that scene. And I know I already mentioned this with Lee earlier in the review, and it's gonna seem like I'm beating a dead horse, but I just gotta say it again. The lists, the rules, whatever you want to call them, are stupid. The characters are constantly breaking the rules and ignoring the list in this movie's case throughout the entire movie series, so it makes you wonder why they're even there to begin with. And those are just the tropes that this movie has going for it, and those are the ones I can think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's many more that I can think of after I'm done making this video. As far as the new story elements are concerned, they make no sense and they are forgotten about pretty much as quickly as they are introduced. Elle throws a temper tantrum over her dad dating a new woman in his life, and I was actually excited for this part of the movie because it's the only time we get a chance to see his character develop and we get some personality behind him. And it ends up being completely ruined because Elle immediately dislikes the new woman for no good reason at all, and she has a big argument with her father at the dinner table about it. I mean, for God's sakes, Elle's little brother behaves better than her in this situation. Granted, he only has like 2 lines of dialogue in the whole movie, but still. Another thing that confused the hell out of me is when Lee makes a new best friend at a party that everyone has at the beach house. Now, I understand the direction the filmmakers were going with this. They wanted to develop a potential replacement character for Elle that Lee was going to have as a best friend when he inevitably goes to Berkeley. The problem with this, however, is he's only in like 2 or 3 scenes throughout the entire movie and then he just disappears into nowhere. It's like, what was the point of even introducing him in this movie? Another weird thing that comes and goes in this movie is when Chloe from The Kissing Booth 2 appears and she has a heart-to-heart conversation with Noah on the beach about her parents divorcing. It comes way out of nowhere, has nothing to do at all with the events that are happening in the story, and again, it confused the hell out of me. I have no idea why half the things that happen in this movie even happen at all. And all these things from the bucket list that Elle and Lee do, I'm sorry, I know I've talked about it a lot, this is going to be the last time I talk about the list, I swear. It makes no sense how they're able to pull it off from a money point of view. They do all these crazy things like going on scuba diving expeditions, and then they're going skydiving, but Elle is supposed to be saving up for her Harvard tuition on a waitress's salary. It's like, how are you able to do all these things and save for Harvard while working as a waitress? It's like, what? And yeah, I know Lee and Noah's family are supposed to be super rich, but let's be real, they're not that rich. And finally, the ending to this movie is a total cop-out. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who's remotely interested in watching this movie, but let's just say if you were expecting anything substantial for this movie to go out on a bang with, you're going to be severely disappointed. Overall, The Kissing Booth 3 and the series at large are a complete waste of time. Its characters experience little in the way of growth across a span of 3 movies, and it teaches bad moral lessons to its target audience. The only people I could possibly recommend to watch this movie are those who consider themselves hardcore fans of the previous 2 movies before it. Other than that, everyone else is just better off staying clear from this one. In a way, it's actually kind of impressive that the filmmakers were able to create a series of movies this consistently awful. And yeah, I know it's popular and all that, but popular doesn't automatically mean it's good. And I can think of no better series of movies that's more emblematic of this fact than the Kissing Booth trilogy. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of The Kissing Booth 3. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Jordanian miniseries Al Rawabi School for Girls. Bye-bye!